Hello everyone, here are 50 tips every architect should know when using a computer. I'll be covering some of the most popular architecture software and some general tips. Let's start with Autocad. The first command is the oops command. If you accidentally delete something and want to bring it back, just type oops. And the difference between this and the regular undo is that if you make a bunch of progress after deleting something and you press undo, it will only undo your last action. Oops will bring back the object you deleted no matter how far back you deleted it. Sometimes when selecting something, you'd want to select the midpoint between 2 points, but snapping won't work. In that case, while selecting, press Shift right click, and this menu will open up, and select mid between 2 points, and select the 2 points you want the mid between, and it will automatically snap that. Similarly, if you want to select a point that's a certain distance from a point, select From, and it will do exactly that. When working with different drawings, you can have different viewports. Type viewport, and this will open up this dialog box, and you have a lot of options. Let's select this one. And as you can see, you can move around each viewport independently. The neat thing is, if you're working with isometric drawings, you can even turn on IsoSnap in a certain viewport. Instead of making singular dimension lines, you can speed up the process by typing in quick dimension, and that will create dimension lines for every selected object. When selecting a bunch of stuff, quick select can be the best way to do so. It will open up a dialog box of different properties they can select based on. For example, if we press layer and the tree layer, it will select all of the trees. What's interesting is that if we open up the dialog box again and select layer and trees and press not equal to, it will select everything that is not on the tree layer. So this can be really helpful. The ray command lets you draw an infinite line, which can be really useful when taking projection lines. If things get too crowded, you can always isolate objects. Select the object you want to edit, right-click, isolate objects, and when you're done with your edits, right-click, isolate, end object isolation, and we'll bring everything back. AutoCAD has a fully functional calculator. Just type Quick Calc to open it up. You can use dynamic blocks to edit blocks after they've been created. Just simply create a simple block, double-click it, press OK, and we'll open up the block editor. Now I won't go into depth on how this is done. This requires a full tutorial on its own, which I can possibly do in the future, but the main idea is now you have the option to edit certain parameters of the block after you've created it. This saves a lot of time and really helps reduce file size. And really there is no limit on how complicated dynamic blocks could be. After a long day of working with AutoCAD, sometimes all I just want to do is close everything up, but then I have to save every file individually. To bypass that, you can simply type Save All, which will save everything at once and you can immediately close. Alternatively, you can type Close All and that will close up everything. Bonus tip, if you want to know how much you've been working on a project, just simply type time and it will show you exactly how long you've been working on it. I've been working on this project for 11 days.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
When drawing something in Rhino, you can press Ctrl to create a reference point to snap on, or you can press Tab to lock the direction that you're already moving in, so you can align it with other things. When drawing something, instead of turning on snap and then having to turn it off, you can press Shift and click on the thing you want to snap to, and it will only snap for that selection and turn off again once you're done. When you want to select a lot of things in Rhino, you can press on Filter, press on the thing you want to select, drag across, and only that thing will be selected. When drawing something, you can type length, click on a curve, and your drawing will automatically be that length. Similar to AutoCAD, if you want to get a midpoint between 2 points, you have to type between and select both of your points, and it will give you exactly that point. Now this can be very tiresome when you have to type that multiple times per project. So in Rhino you can press File, Properties, Keyboard, and select hotkeys for whatever command that you want. As you can see, I have between set to Ctrl B. Something I find really useful is making Ctrl-Shift-C snap the camera to whatever object that you've selected. When you press the middle mouse button, this menu pops up. You can change this into something that you'd find more useful by going to Properties, Mouse, and change it to whatever you want. Sometimes when creating surfaces, it won't work because you've left a gap open. To fix this, simply type close curve and Rhino will close it on its own. When working on an object, you can orient the construction plane to that object. Just simply press construction plane, object, and select what you want to orient it to. Now anything you draw will be drawn on that construction plane. To reset it, press construction plane and undo. If you have a bunch of 3D objects, you can select them and make them into a 2D drawing. Make sure that you don't turn on hidden lines unless you want the lines that are hidden in the back to be shown. This will take some time, but it will turn the whole thing into a 2D drawing that you can edit as you wish. Bonus tip, you can go to Properties, Appearance, and change whatever you want in how Rhino looks. Don't worry, you can always restore defaults. When selecting something in SketchUp, click to select the face, double-click to select every line joined to that, and triple-click to select the whole object. When moving the camera around, instead of selecting the buttons themselves, you can use the scroll wheel to zoom, the middle mouse button to orbit, and shift and middle mouse button to pan. When moving an object, you can press the arrow keys to snap to a certain axis. When using the eraser, instead of deleting something, you can press Shift to simply just hide it. To bring it back, you can go to View, Hidden Geometry, select everything, and unhide. If you want accurate shadows in your SketchUp model, you can go to File, Geolocation, Add Location, and tag the location of your model on a map. When moving an object, press Ctrl to copy it. You can even press any number you want, for example 5, X, and then press Enter, and it will create an array with the exact same distance that you've moved. When drawing, you can press Shift to lock the direction in which you are drawing. You can use the tape measure tool to create guides. Just press Ctrl to toggle and create guides wherever you want. One very popular feature of SketchUp that I don't see used as often as it should be is the 3D warehouse. Basically, it's an online library of different 3D models that you can use at your own will. Bonus tip, I don't personally use SketchUp, and one of the reasons is because it sometimes takes too long to save when the file is a bit large. To bypass that, you can aim at the sky where no models are visible and press save. This will decrease saving time by about 25%. Inside Photoshop, you can use the spacebar to pan around the screen and Control spacebar to zoom in and out. While on any tool, you can press Ctrl to quickly switch to the Move tool and move anything around. While on the Move tool, you can press Ctrl to move the layer without actually having the cursor on it, and you can press Alt to copy any layer you want. When using the paint bucket on an empty layer, it will fill the whole screen. You can turn on all layers to avoid that happening. If you create a paint layer, and then Alt and click between this layer and the layer below it, it will create a clipping mask, which basically means anything on this layer will only affect the layer below it. So wherever I paint, you'll only see it through that certain layer. This also works with adjustments. You can select multiple objects, right-click, convert to Smart Object, so that they'd act as one object, but you would be able to edit them by double-clicking this icon right here. It will open in a new file. You can edit it however you please, and then press Ctrl S, close the file, and you will see the edits have been applied to the original file. When adding realistic materials, something that I see a lot of people do is try to change the opacity on that material to kind of create a faded look. This might work, but would be a problem if you have a different colored background. A workaround for this is to pick Hue and Saturation, apply the clipping mask, and increase the lightness. This would work with anything behind it, unlike opacity. If you want to select something, you can go to the layer, Control, and click. It will automatically select every pixel in that layer. Another very good way to select stuff is go to Select, Color Range, click on a certain color, and it will select everything in the entire scene that has that color. When using a brush, the left and right brackets change the brush size but adding Shift to the left or right brackets changes the brush hardness. You can also press Alt to select colors, and Alt and right click to move around and play around with the size and hardness. While selecting a layer, you can double click it to open up the layer styles. This could be very useful because you can use the drop shadow to create very realistic shadows. Piece of advice, you can add different drop shadows to create a more intense look and edit each one individually. When working with a larger file, finding the right layer can be a troubling task. You can turn on selection filters from over here. For example, if we press on text, it will only show me text layers so that I can easily select them. Bonus tip, something really useful in Photoshop that a lot of people don't seem to use are layer masks. Layer masks are basically an extra layer you add upon an existing layer to show and hide things from it. What happens is, if you have a black brush selected, you can hide things, but then if you select a white brush, you can show these things again. This is useful because you can trim out different parts of an image, and if you make a mistake, you can always go back. This is also useful because you can use it with the select color range option. If you select all these colors, by the way, if you press Shift and drag across the screen, it will select more colors, and then press Layer Mask, and press Ctrl I to invert the mask, you will have a much better selection already up and running. What's even better is that if you double click on Layer Mask and press Smart Radius and increase that up to 1, Photoshop does a better masking job and creates much more efficient selections. This is incredibly useful, and I could do a full-length tutorial just on this feature. If you save a DWG file as 2010, you can open up that file in Illustrator. Just simply select the right scale, change the size of the artboards. Personally, I find this a great way to adjust line weights, to even have different colors, and to import everything into Photoshop. Since these are vector files, they can be scaled infinitely without losing quality. And at any time, you can double-click and go back to Illustrator to edit them. All you have to do is press Ctrl S, go back into Photoshop, and the edits will be saved. This sped up my workflow almost 100%. If you don't want to learn any of the complicated 3D software or can't afford them, Blender is a free alternative that is just as powerful. It's very light and it's very easy to use, and it's only 200 megabytes, so you can download it easily. As you can see, it's full of features, so don't worry about missing out by not using a bigger software. If you're anything like me, then you like layouting everything in Photoshop and don't find InDesign that useful. However, you can link PSDs to the InDesign file so you can keep everything organized and do your edits on Photoshop, and when you save them, everything will update automatically in the InDesign. If you're trying to create realistic renders, then definitely download Substance Painter to have more control over the textures and materials in your renders. If you want to make architectural videos, then download Twinmotion. It's a very powerful program and is completely free if you are a student. If you want visualization tutorials, then visualizingarchitecture.com is a great place to start. You will find tutorials about every part of the visualizing process. If you're looking for free fonts, then fontspace.com and thefont.com are great places to start. For free stock photos, you can search stocksnap.io, Pixabay, and Pixels for stock videos. If you're looking for 3D models, then free3d.com and TurboSquid have a large collection. It's not all free, but a lot of them are. For 3D materials, 3dtextures.me is an amazing website built by one person who offers hundreds of free 3D materials. For HDRIs, go to hdrihaven.com. You can also check out their other websites, Texture Haven and 3D Model Haven. Bonus tip, go to my website, follow me on Facebook, subscribe to my channel on YouTube, and follow me on Instagram for more tutorials like this, and for tons of free assets that you can use whenever you want.